This is Robert Kraft coming to you live on SNNLive, and we're here at the SeeThruEquity MicroCap Investor Forum 2015 in New York City, New York. With me right now is Rick Schumacher, a familiar face from Pressure Biosciences, Inc. The ticker symbol is PBIO. Rick, welcome back to SNNLive.
Thank you, Robert.
You know, I thank you for the opportunity. I know you do a lot of interviews with my father, so I appreciate you coming on and speaking with me. So, for our audience that have seen those interviews with my dad, let's get an overview first of PBIO.
Sure. We are a life science tools company. What that means is that we make instruments and consumables that are used in the research setting all over the world. You know, Robert, there's about 500,000 researchers that are studying viruses and bacteria and cells. It could be cancer, it could be heart disease, it could be balding. And they need to open up the cells that they're working with. And they're using methods that I used as a scientist in the 70s and 80s. And we've come up with a whole new method that we call pressure cycling technology. We actually squeeze the samples with pressure. And we squeeze things out of the samples, basically. And it's new. It's very innovative. We've got 24 issued patents. We've been in this technology now for about 5 or 6 years, and I'm happy to say that we have 150 customers already. We have some of the top customers in the world that are using this technology. This is the way that these scientists are breaking open their cells to get to all the good stuff, the proteins, the DNA, the lipids.
Okay, so since our last interview at SeeThruEquity, you've had a couple updates, so let's go on that path. Let's get some updates about what's going on at PBIO.
Well, you know, I stood with your dad, and I gave guidance several times in the last year. We're a small company. We have limited resources. But regardless of that, I gave guidance that our sales were going to increase. Our sales generally about 2 years ago, year and a half ago, were about $300,000 to $350,000 a quarter. I gave guidance that we were going to break $500,000 in the third quarter. We put out our Q today, and we did. We had $580,000 in revenue. We blew it apart. Our best quarter before that was about $440,000. We've had, in the 5 or 6 years of selling our systems, we've had 4 quarters of $400,000. We had 2 back-to-back this year, and we followed it with a $580,000 quarter. Very, very excited. The team is working very hard. The momentum has started. We believe we've hit an inflection point. We believe we're ready to take advantage of that inflection point, and just super happy that we not only broke 500, but we came very close to breaking 600,000.
So let's get into that a little bit. So can you explain why you were able to break new barriers on your revenue streams for this quarter?
We have a list of a who's who in terms of our customers. We have a wonderful list of academic organizations, of government organizations, of research centers all over the country, all over the world. And they're our best salespeople right now, because as a company of 9 with just 1 full-time salesperson, we've had to really rely on our customers. And our customers are scientists. And these scientists are finding that when they have to break open a cell to get all the good stuff out, that they get a better result. They often get a much better result using our system to squeeze things out rather than to use like a hammer and a chisel and banging things. The methods most people use today are to spin the sample with tiny beads and break it up, or use blades to chop up the cell. We squeeze it back and forth using pulses of pressure. And we are told, and we've seen, that it sometimes works tremendously better than the old-fashioned way. So these are our customers that are publishing papers, presenting their work at major meetings, and their work is what's really driving our sales. Because as more and more customers use our system, as more and more papers are published, we get phone calls saying, I want to do the same method that Dr. So-and-so is using.
So what I'm curious about is, I want to know what the main difference is when a scientist is using your technology. Like, for instance, when they're going in to break open the cell the old way, you know, why is it that the way in which they're doing it that way is potentially harmful to their own research process, whereas if they're using your technology, from what you're telling me, it's better? Like, what does that mean?
You know, a cell is made up of thousands of proteins, maybe as many as 10,000 different proteins. And it's made up of DNA, RNA, lipids, and other things. We're mainly looking at proteins. You could have a disease that's caused by a small change in one protein. If you've got a cell, a cancer cell, a precancer cell, a normal cell, and you're looking for the cause of that disease or a cure for that disease, you may be looking for one small change on one of thousands and thousands of proteins. So it's very important for you as a scientist to use the best method possible to open up the cell and not destroy what you're looking for. Now, many people are using methods that I used in the 70s and 80s. These are mechanical means. We're spinning the protein and the cell with a bunch of little beads. And as we spin it, the beads are hitting the cell and opening it up. But the beads generate heat, and they can affect and adversely affect what you're trying to get. We control the process exquisitely well. Everything in nature has a pressure point. We can put these samples, these cells, inside of a special consumable in a pressure chamber. We can dial in the pressure that we want. So if we want to break open the HIV virus, we only have to go to 17,000 pounds per square inch. If we want to break open the hepatitis B virus, we have to go to 60 to 65,000 pounds per square inch. The competition uses the same method regardless of what they're dealing with. One size fits all. We can fine tune to every single cell what pressure is needed, how long the pressure needs to be on, and how many times we turn the pressure on and off. It's exquisitely controllable, and anybody that's ever used a pressure cooker knows that things happen faster under pressure. So we can do things in a more controlled fashion, usually faster than what you can do without pressure.
You actually just answered my next question, because I was curious if you could.
I knew that, Robert.
I had a feeling you did, because I was just curious if it was customizable depending on what the researcher is looking for. So on that topic, do you actually make it so that on the machine itself, or do you provide the machine and then they customize it for them where you have all the tools?
It's a very good question. There are lots of different applications. This is a platform technology. It's like owning electricity. And how much electricity do you need for X, Y, and Z, and how long? So in this case, there's so many different applications. The amount of pressure and the amount of time under pressure that you need for one cell may be totally different than what you need for a different cell. Our customers, 150 customers out there, some are working in agriculture, some are breaking open bacteria in soil, some are working in aquaculture, looking at red tide, some are working in human disease, cancer, heart disease, stroke, some are working in antibioterror. They are developing the applications. They're scientists. They're doing what we call trial and error. They're looking and say, what do I need to break open this substance, this cell, this bacteria, this virus? They will do the work because it's part of their grant. It's part of their hope to get tenure or the Nobel Prize. They will then publish the work. That becomes then available for everybody else. So once somebody hones in and says, this is what you need to get the best result with this type of bacteria, E. coli, or something like that, then everybody else will know. That becomes a routine process for our instrument.
I was just going to ask, what's some of the feedback when you face some challenges in the sales process? I'm just curious, because from what you're telling me, it makes sense that all researchers should be using your technology, but what is some of the feedback that you do get?
Certainly. Well, one of them is that what you don't know can't hurt you. So if we deal with a scientist who he or she has been breaking open their bacteria they study for 20 years using a method, and they were taught by their mentor to do that, we go in and say, we have a whole new method for you to break that up, and you might find better results. We have to be careful because it might be seen that we're criticizing their work. Number two, we're an unknown. We're an unknown. There's 500,000 scientists out there, and that's a good thing. If our sales are starting to ramp and nobody knows who we are, we're excited about what happens when we start marketing this product and people start finding out how good the product really is. So one of the biggest things is they'll say, I don't have a problem with my sample preparation. I break it open using this method. It's worked for years. We have to try to prove to them that actually they do have a problem, that if they tried our system, they would get more of the protein, or maybe find proteins they've never seen before, or maybe get a higher quality protein. And it's a difficult sell, but as more and more customers use our product, as more and more papers are published, as more and more key opinion leaders stand up in front of groups and talk about our system, it becomes a little bit easier. Now we start getting phone calls saying, I want to take a look at your system, from the same people that 2 years ago said, oh, we don't have a problem.
So I'm curious as to whether or not there's any competition out there who's also using similar pressure cycling technology.
No. We have 24 issued patents. There is lots of competition that are using other things. They're using sonic waves. They're using little tiny beads. They're using heat. They're using enzymes. But as far as I know, we're the only company that we don't just use pressure, we use cycled pulses of pressure. Our patents are on pressure cycling technology. We turn the pressure on and off. And in some cases, it works the same as if the pressure was static. In other cases, it works tremendously better. Doesn't matter, because in our system, because we have patents, you can use static pressure or you can use cycled pressure. I don't know of anyone else out there that is selling directly a pressure cycle. If they were, they need to talk to my lawyer.
Okay, so moving forward, from what you can tell me, what are some of your goals and aspirations going into the end of the year, into 2016?
Well, you know what's interesting is with your father, Shelley, and with others, I've given a lot of guidance this year, starting last year. I said our sales were going to ramp, and they did. I said we'd break $500,000 in sales, and we never even came close before, and we almost broke 600,000. I said that we were going to be successful in raising money to pay off debt and clean up our balance sheet. I've already announced that we raised $3.3 million in the last 3 months, and our balance sheet looks an awful lot better than it did before because we're getting rid of a lot of difficult debt. I've said, the only thing I've said that hasn't come true yet, and we still have 6 weeks, is I said that for us to get the word out, we need the help of a big company. A company that's got dozens and dozens of people, salespeople out in the field. So I've said that our goal and our expectation is before the end of this year, before the end of 2015, we will be announcing a co-marketing deal with one of the 6 big mass spectrometry companies. A mass spectrometer is the instrument that is the instrument of choice to read the proteins that come out of cells. We're the guys that can prepare the proteins we think better than anybody. The mass spectrometer can read it downstream. We should be in front of mass spectrometers. And so we've met with virtually all the 6, and we believe that before the year is out, we'll be announcing a deal with at least one that they will be bringing the information on pressure cycling technology to a far, much bigger, far larger base of potential customers. So that is one thing that I think investors should be looking at is, am I going to fulfill that guidance as we have on all the others? And we still hold with that guidance that will happen in the next 6 weeks. Next year, we've also given guidance saying that next year we want to uplist the company to a national exchange like NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange. So I think investors should keep an eye on that too. We know that being on the OTC is very difficult for us because many brokers cannot sell our stock. Once we get on NASDAQ, things will change dramatically. I've been on NASDAQ. I've started 3 prior companies worth $1 billion. They're all on NASDAQ. So we know the advantage of being on NASDAQ. So that's a goal of ours. I tell people, think about this company, Pressure Bio. Think about where we were a couple of months ago. An OTC company, very little money in the bank, almost $3 million in debt, burdened with debt, no marketing partner, and think about this company where we might be 3 or 4 months from now. We might be a national exchange listed company. We might have no debt on the books. We might have several million in operating funds. We might have a partner that has thousands of customers, and we might have our own sales team. So, and we're pretty well along on most, that's the guidance I've given, and we're pretty well along on everything I've just said.
Okay, so for our audience to go and find more information about Pressure Biosciences, this is the toughest question, by the way.
Uh-oh.
What's your website?
www.pressurebiosciences.com.
My name is Robert Kraft, and I'm coming to you live on SNNLive, and we're here at the SeeThruEquity MicroCap Investor Forum 2015 in New York City, New York. With me again has been Rick Schumacher from Pressure Biosciences, Inc., ticker PBIO. Rick, always a pleasure.